of his children to be nurtured and loved. He saw us be workers, be boys, to help out. And you got to learn very quick. And if you didn't learn quickly, you were either stupid or he didn't want nothing to do with you. So I was very slow in learning, and he was very always upset. So I had this belief that I was dumb, stupid, and capable. And so I developed a personality that I wanted to hide all those feelings. And so I wanted to present a smile. You know, people said I have a nice smile. And so I wanted to project an image of an interesting thing is eventually, as I got older, I got into real estate. Before I got into real estate, I got into the hairdressing business. And I developed a personality of being a hairdresser. And all the things that we were required to be a good hairdresser, I became a very good hairdresser, and I had a business. But eventually I got tired of the hairdressing business after 25 years, and I became a realtor. And one thing I noticed, that I had the suit and I had the shoes and I had an aha experience. Now I am duplicating exactly what I saw when I was a child. The shiny shoes, the dress, the suit, the tie, and the nice car. I've developed the real estate personality. Now, I was fortunate though. I found my teacher who taught Gurdjieff and Spinoza. We'll talk about Spinoza at another time, but it was a group that I became in touch with in 1970, because even though I had all the things I dreamed about of having, I had a business. I was a hairdresser at the time. I was married. My wife was beautiful. She was smart. And just attractive. She was white. She wasn't Mexican, so I felt Mexicans like myself were inferior, which is not true, but I believe that. And then we had, a beauty salon. We had cars. We had a home. We had money, and we used to go to restaurants, and we had friends. And so everything seemed good on the outside. But inwardly, I still felt like that inferior little boy who didn't feel important, who was unsure of himself, didn't know really how to communicate well, and felt inferior, felt inadequate. And even though I had all these external things, I felt inadequate. And what I decided that I wanted to study how to change myself. So through my early years as a young man, I would purchase different books on how to help myself, self-help books. And I would read a book, and like, Psycho-Cybernetics was one of them, and many others. But after I read the book, I found that nothing had really changed. I still felt these inadequate feelings about myself. And it's interesting, being married, having a business, having all these material gains I wanted and came to. I thought that would change me and make me happy, but it really didn't. Fortunately, I met a man because I was searching for something. My wife and I were searching for something. I left a Cali church. I hadn't been to a Cali to a mass to church in a number of years, and I kind of left the church. And I was looking for something else to give me some kind of something. I didn't know what it was, but I felt unhappy. I felt dissatisfied. And fortunately, I met my teacher, Gregory Grover, who was conducting a Gurdjieff group in West Hollywood. And I attended, and I was so affected by what I first heard. What it was is, he said that the goal was to become a master of ourselves. And I found that I was not a master of myself. And my teacher suggested that we read this book, In Search of the Miraculous. And I read it, and at first I found it very difficult to read because of my low self-esteem, my feeling of inadequacy, my level of application was very limited, but I was persistent. And one thing that my teacher said that, he had doubts about my ability to, or my desire, or uh, my level of education, would it allow me to be in his work, in his group, because he wasn't working with everybody. He was very particular with who he worked with, because he saw me as being a Catholic, because Catholics, their belief is they don't really want you to think. They just want you to follow their belief, their traditions, their imaginary idea of what God is. And then he saw me as my limited education. He saw that my mind was very passive, and he says, "Louis, you live by your emotions. Your thinking is very, very poor." And he also he thought maybe that I was too identified with my culture, being Mexican American. He thought that my identity of that would be limited also. But one thing he didn't realize, that, and I didn't realize it also, is that I had something, and that those of you who have it will know what I'm talking about. There is a magnetic center in us. And Gurdjieff talks about the magnetic center. There's so many wonderful things in Gurdjieff, in the Search of the Miraculous. But the magnetic center, I didn't know I had this. But I was so attracted to my teacher and what he was saying. He had a presence about him that was, to me, he looked like my father. Small in stature, light in complexion. I'm dark, but my father was light. Interesting thing, in my family, there are dark Mexicans and there are light Mexicans, and all the light Mexicans felt that they were superior. There's another erroneous idea that, white people are superior over dark people. False ideas. So we're all, and this is part of personality. This is part of culture. This is why when a person who, say, a Native American Indian, who lived in a reservation, is put into, say, a social, culture life, will feel totally inadequate, will probably die in that kind of environment. And this is what happened to very many Native Americans. They turned to alcohol at that period because that was the only drug, and because they could not express their own nature in an environment that was suppressing them. And so I found in myself, in this group, and this is what's called the Spinoza Gurdjieff work group in West Hollywood, California. I stayed in this group for about 25 years. And many of my peers in this group, there were many men and women. Most of them were highly educated. Some were doctors, lawyers. Some were contractors, builders, teachers, psychologists. And I was a hairdresser. And I felt so inferior in comparison. But even though the inferiority did not stop me, because I had something else the teacher said, that Louis, you have a depth. And I didn't know what that was either. He says, you have a depth. And also you have persistence. So 3 things: a magnetic center, a depth, meaning that I could take in what he was saying into myself and not intellectualize it, but absorb it. And the other thing is persistence, meaning that I wanted to change. I was dissatisfied. And this is the key. For you to change, you have to be dissatisfied. To be attracted to this kind of work that we're doing, you have to have this magnetic center. And also, I think every individual has an essential nature, a depth. And some have more depth than others. I fortunately had a depth. And I remained in this group with my teacher for 25 years, and all the other men left. And I would say in the latter part of the year, when my teacher died in 1994, there were only 4 of us left. And I would say that we had hundreds of people who came to our work, and people who stayed maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 15 or 20 years. and the